Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Grant for One Fair Review, and today we're doing a movie review. Oh my god, it's been so long. The last time I think was Godzilla King of the Monsters. Might be wrong on that, except I'm not. That was the exact last time. That's a bit unfortunate, but today we're looking at It Chapter 2, the second part to It Chapter 1. So let's look at It 2, It Is. Directed by Andy Muschietti. 27 years after their first encounter with the terrifying Pennywise the Clown, the Losers Club have grown up and moved away, until a devastating fall call brings them all back to relive the memories of their past when they were children. Do they escape Pennywise's grasp? Is Stephen King a coked-out lunatic who writes weird books? Who knows? Starring the amazing cast of Jessica Chastain as Beverly Mars, James McAvoy as Bill Derboer, Bill Hader as Richie Tozier, Isaiah Mustafa as Mike Hannon, Jay Ryan, what a great name, as Ben Hanscon, James Ransone as Eddie Kasparak, Andy Bean as Stanley Uris, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, and all the little kids who were in the first movie return as their little kid forms, except 14 years old and CGI'd face and auto-tuned voices. Oh boy, what a great movie. Alright, guys, to be serious, I watched It 2, It Is, not too long ago, a couple days ago, in fact. I wanted to ruminate on this for a little bit, and I have to say, what the experience? I gotta be honest, I didn't remember that much of it, the first one. I remembered I enjoyed it, but I hated all the horror elements of it, so I really wasn't excited for part 2, especially because my favorite part is the kids, and the interesting part about the book is kind of the adults jumping back and forth throughout the book, seeing them as kids and trying to remember them as kids, and that's really the entertainment out of the book. And without that, it's kind of hard to really get into the story. Honestly, I do think It is one of those stories it's kind of hard to adapt, because the book is so just bizarre and weird and just such a non-movie format that it is really hard to do it. And I think that this movie did try to do it, even well enough that you don't really need to watch the first It, to be honest, in order to watch this one, because they kind of jump back every now and again, and it kind of gets repetitive at times, but that's besides the point. But anyways, what did I think about this movie as a whole? Is it as good as the original? As the first movie? Is it a welcome send-off? And I have to say, no, not really. I did enjoy this movie. You know, just to get the positives out of the way before I talk about the negatives, I thought the cast was great. Whoever was the casting director of the movie did a fantastic job. Everybody, all the actors, are perfectly casted to be the kid counterpart. Sometimes it's scary. You know, Eddie and Ben in particular, those two actors, I was just like shocked to see them. I was like, whoa, they look scary similar to the kids. And I was really impressed. I don't know if that was CGI. I really wasn't paying attention that much. I do know the kids were CGI at some points, but I thought in terms of casting, it was very well done, and all the actors did a great job acting. They're all fantastic. Alright, so I thought the casting was great. What else did I like? Honestly, not a lot. There are certain character elements in this movie I did thought were interesting. A lot of the scenes where the characters are together talking and discussing what happened in the past or discussing what they're doing right now, I thought all that stuff was interesting. Of course, I am a fan of procedural dramas. I love to see people talk about a situation and try to figure out how to fix it, rather than seeing a bunch of cool action on screen and crazy special effects. Even though I do love seeing crazy special effects, but I love seeing crazy special effects in the terms of John Carpenter's The Thing more than, say like something like Star Wars, where it's all just CGI. So this is where the movie kind of loses me. A majority of the movie is a bunch of horror stuff and a bunch of CGI horror, and I hated it. I hated every horror element in this movie. And that's a big problem when you're trying to make a horror movie. You gotta love the horror elements. This movie, it took all the elements I did not like about the first It, I hated everything in the horror. I thought Bill Skarsgård, he did a great job as Pennywise. He's a great actor. I just don't think it fits very well with what they're trying to do. He's believable as a freak, but I really never bought the whole, yeah, a kid would approach this weirdo. You know what I mean? It doesn't sit well with me. I mean, I know as a kid and as an adult, I would not approach this freak. He just looks way too sinister looking, and I think if they went more subtle with it, it would have been better. And I think that's another one of my biggest problems with this movie. Subtlety is not something I would describe this movie with. There are very, very, very few points where it works. The horror is pretty good. 3 moments in particular in the movie I thought worked very well, but that's 3 moments out of an almost 3-hour long movie that I thought were kind of effective. But usually those moments delved into CGI, just monster crap, and I didn't like it. And that's something that really, really irked me throughout the entire movie. I was face-palming quite a bit, and my jaw dropped at some of the horrible special effects. I just really could not get into the horror elements of this movie because it just wasn't scary, wasn't creepy, or anything like that. Like I said, a few moments worked. The beginning opening scene with the gay couple, which is actually straight out of the book, that was pretty good. That was very effective. There's another part with the girl on the bleachers. That was another part that I thought was pretty damn effective. But there's not a lot of that throughout the movie. Of course, there's a moment where everybody's seen the old lady when Beverly's in her old apartment where she's kind of walking around. I thought that scene looked cool in the trailers. I was like, oh, this is neat. This is kind of creepy. But I know they're going to screw it up somehow. And they did. They just turned her into this big CGI googly-eyed monster. And I was like, oh, that just does not look good. And it does not look scary. A majority of this movie is just jump scares, and I think that's what a majority of people at our theater went to go see. They went to see jump scares, the movie, and I personally don't want to see jump scares. They're not scary. At best, they shock you for a little bit, and then you kind of laugh it off and like, oh, okay, back to the movie. You know, it doesn't leave a lasting impact, and that's something I've always mentioned. I want a lasting impact with these movies, and this movie just doesn't do it for me. Like I said, I really wanted to see more of the character elements. That was the stuff I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the actors, the characters kind of going around and talking and remembering their past. But then it kind of delves into them. They all split up. And then it's like the same scene like 6 times where the adult goes to a place by themselves and then they remember their past, get scared by the clown, and then they're back in the present and then they get scared by the clown again. It's repetitive and it gets boring pretty fast. Even though throughout the majority of the movie I wasn't particularly bored, I was kind of upset that this pattern kept repeating, and I knew every time they would just kind of up the ante, and they just needed to have that stupid clown every time. They had to have Pennywise just keep coming out, and I was sick of it. Now, I'm not one of those people who hails Stephen King's It as a masterpiece. I've read it. I think it's okay at best. It is a mess of a story, but it has really cool ideas. I do like the idea of like this kind of eldritch abomination, kind of like Lovecraftian, that could take the form of literally anything. And I like the idea of that it takes the form of, your biggest fear. And I really wanted to see more of that. Like in the book, you could have the Wolfman, you could have the Mummy, you could have Frankenstein's monster, a leper, whatever. You have all these different creatures. And then there's the clown. And really, the clown is my least favorite part of It. I know that's what everybody remembers from It. They remember the clown, especially Tim Curry from the TV movie. But that's another topic for another day. But I always found the idea of like this monster mash of like all these different monsters coming out and just seeing all these different creatures to be more interesting than the clown itself. Personally, I'm not afraid of clowns. I don't care about clowns. Even though Bill Skarsgård does a great job playing Pennywise, even though he's not subtle in the least, I really would have preferred to just see a bunch of monsters, him take the form of monsters, which is kind of the point. I want to see this eldritch abomination take the form of different monsters. And even at the end of the movie, I was wondering what they were going to do. Were they going to do a literal spider? Or were they going to try to imitate, kind of Cthulhu, where it's like you really can't, it doesn't have a form on Earth. It's just kind of this abomination that we cannot comprehend. But the closest thing we could see is a spider. Instead of doing a literal spider and instead of doing their own thing, they just said, combine a spider and Pennywise, put them together. And it's like, that's really lame. And I really was not a fan of it. I really have to say the epicness that they try to go for in this movie, I was not all up for. I really want subtlety in my horror movies. I want something to leave a lasting impact, damn it. I want something to truly scare me or creep me out. To be honest, Pet Cemetery left a lasting impact on me more so than this movie, and I thought that was more a horror movie than this, even though I don't find Pet Cemetery, the newest one from 2019, to be perfect. I do think it works much better than It Part 2 It Is. So, I mean, take that for what you will. But that being said, there are things I do like in the movie. I do like the cast. Bill Hader in particular is excellent as Richie Tozier. He has some hilarious moments in this movie, much better than the TV movie, which was awful. So I really did like Bill Hader. There was this kind of thing that they did with him that wasn't in the book, but you know, it was tastefully done. I thought it was nice. I thought all the like I said, I thought all the characters were pretty good. I wish they got more development, and I think that's the thing I want the most. I wanted more development. I wanted more of the characters interacting, doing stuff together. You know, one of my favorite scenes was just like the Chinese restaurant. Hey, let's hang out at the Chinese restaurant. That's fun. Even though it was awkwardly edited, and being somebody who loves editing, I just found it very awkward at times. But again, that's a boring topic for boring people. Another thing I really liked in the movie was Stephen King. Stephen King shows up in his cameo, kind of like Stan Lee of the Marvel Universe. Stephen King always used to appear in his TV movies back in the day, even if they sucked. And he appears here today, and I loved him. I thought that was my favorite scene in the movie. Even though Stephen King is a really bad actor, I really don't blame him. I did enjoy seeing him, and he's just one of those people that's just kind of likable when you see him on screen, despite being a weirdo. But yes, that was my take on the story. In terms of special effects and soundtrack, I found this movie, again, to be very lacking. The special effects are terrible. Really, really bad. Even worse than the first movie, which I thought the first movie had some bad CGI aspects to it. This movie has a lot more CGI in it, and it's just really, really poorly done and just unnecessary. I feel like they could have done something better with just makeup and, you know, just get the Wolfman in there, get the Mummy, you know, get some cool monsters. But instead they don't do that. The coolest thing they do is they have a leper back, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess that's kind of gross, but not really. The grossest part in this movie was when Eddie is walking on a bunch of dirty needles. But that's just a personal, inherent just fear I have, just walking on dirty, you know, needles and shots. I don't like that. So that's just me. Maybe it doesn't happen with you guys, but that happens to me. I kind of cringed at that. Other than that, nothing really scared me. I wasn't scared of anything in this movie, and the special effects were really poor to the point where it just took me out of the movie every time I saw them, and I just wanted them to go away. I just wanted them to go away. And by the end of the movie, seeing Pennywise as a spider, I was just like, oh, this is too dumb for me. In terms of the music, I didn't find the music to be particularly memorable. I thought it was okay. It fit with what they were trying to do. A little bit too epic again for a horror movie. I wish they had been more subtle. That's something again I crave. Subtlety in my horror movies. And that's enough I have to say about the presentation. I thought the special effects were terrible. Soundtrack was forgettable. Some neat cinematic shots. The cinematography was pretty good at times. The framing was pretty good. I did like the scenery. I also did kind of like how Derry was kind of empty and there was no people around. That is something that personally I always love to see in movies, when just places are just empty of all people. But that's just a personal thing. I know some people might be annoyed by how Derry seems kind of empty at times, but whatever. That's my personal opinion. All in all, what did I think? What are my final thoughts on the movie? Again, I liked some of the character stuff. The character stuff, I thought some of them was good. I also liked how they adapted the book into the movie, how it's their belief that triumphs over Pennywise. I did like that aspect of it. Considering that they didn't really do that in the last movie. They kind of did that, but at the end of the movie, they just kind of beat the crap out of it. In here, they don't beat the crap out of Pennywise. They more just believe that he is nothing. And that might be a spoiler, but who cares? Who hasn't seen it or who hasn't read the book? So yeah, like I did like how they adapted that stuff. I was like, oh, that's neat. That's how it was in the book. It's half-assed, but that's how they did it. So I was happy to see that in the movie. I thought Bill Skarsgård did a good job as Pennywise, even though it's not personally what I like. I thought he did a good job. The stuff with the kids I thought at times was very weird because it's very clear that they used some sort of CGI de-aging, and they kind of changed their voices a little bit, so that was kind of off-putting. And then on top of that, I hated all the horror elements. So in my horror movie, I thought there was some really fun things in it. I thought it was funny at times, but I hated all the horror. So how could I rate this movie other than a 5 out of 10? It's very uneven for me. It's messy. It's a complete mess. I hated all the horror elements of it, which is the most important part. But it gave me a laugh. I did laugh quite a bit in the movie, more than I expected. Even at points that were not supposed to be funny, I laughed because it was ridiculous. But hey, that's my own opinion. 5 out of 10. I don't really recommend it that much unless you've seen the first It. Then here you'll get the conclusion to the story. Go ahead and watch it if you've watched the first It from 2017. If you have not, you can completely skip this movie. There are probably better horror movies for you to watch. Anyways, if you guys have watched it, let me know what you guys down below in the comments section. Did you love it, hate it, didn't watch it, don't even care about it, you want to watch more anime? Don't worry, more anime reviews will be coming. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, I'm your host, Grant for One Fair Review, and I'll see you next time. As always, have a nice day.